Hey everyone, happy Saturday. I'm Shawnta Jackson, and my purpose in life is to help people to help themselves and others. Last week, we talked a little bit about closing the wealth gap, in particular, the racial wealth gap in the United States. And we talked about financial freedom versus stability with my guest, Langston White, and he's going to join me again today. But today, we're going to talk about how to start a business, why to start a business, and when is the best time to start a business. Langston White is a podcaster, Langston's World. You can follow him on Instagram at IG, I believe it's IG at Langston White, at Langston White. And if you want to learn more about me, you can always follow me on social media at the Shawnta Jackson and visit my website and purchase a copy of my book, The Journal of a Woman with Lived Experiences, a 21-day guided journal. It's available only at shawntajackson.com. And so, as I was saying about Langston, he's a wealth advisor, he's a podcaster, and he's also a business consultant. And what he does is what he calls is help people to leave the plantation. Everyone, welcome, Langston. Thank you, Langston. How are you today?
Oh, you caught me cheesing. That was an amazing introduction. Good grief. I mean, whew, I'm gonna have to fire my hype man
You
because
know what?
that was
I'm gonna
incredible.
have your bio here. Wait, hold on. Langston White is a wealth advisor at Wealth Advocacy Group. After working in financial services for years, he feels confident he was able to isolate the factors that determine financial success and financial ruin. Using
Mm,
that experience, Langston has committed his life to closing the wealth gap in America, one meeting at a time. He is a graduate of Berklee College of Music with a BA in music business, and has a career in business spanning stints at Neighborhood Health Plan and New York Life. Langston runs Langston's World, a popular podcast for people who are tired of giving away years of their lives to make other people wealthy. Langston's World features honest dialogue about race, religion, politics, and health. And when he's talking about health, he's talking about mental health and physical health. Everyone, welcome Langston White.
oh my gosh! Like I don't even. You just beat me because you're me better than I am apparently. So I don't even know why I'm here. But thank you. Your graciousness allowing me to share this platform with you beyond limits.
So, Langston, what does that mean you're helping people to leave the plantation? And what is the
So
plantation and why do we need that help? Why do we need to leave the plantation?
oh man, these are amazingly loaded questions. And I'll start off with that plantation bit because when I first coined the phrase, a lot of people were really uncomfortable with it because it brings up a lot of memories when Black people were in bondage in this country. We're talking about chattel slavery, where Black people had no rights. It was an absolute Holocaust that really hasn't had an opportunity to be addressed yet, but it is what it is. But at the end of slavery, Black people controlled one half of 1% of all the wealth in this country. And here we are in 2020, and we control about one half of 1% of all the wealth. We haven't really left the plantation from buying into the American dream and generating revenue and wealth for ourselves. Like that hasn't happened yet. And one of the best ways to do that is to empower ourselves through ownership, and that looks like entrepreneurship being one of the key building blocks of freedom. So when I talk about leaving the plantation, I'm talking about people who are currently working for someone else who took the risk of starting their own business. And now you're working to make their dreams come true as opposed to making your own dreams come true. And unfortunately, the math just doesn't support this reality where you're going to work really hard and one day you're going to have financial freedom. That's just the trajectory that you're on working as, a wage slave or a debt slave where you're just using your income to finance the debt that buys you the creature comfort you're looking for. There's no financial freedom coming to you in there. And it doesn't matter how well you manage your money. you're not going to be able to manage poor income into wealth. I don't care how great your management skills are. And one great way to increase your income is to create a side hustle or a business. That's probably one of the quickest ways you can get there. And the reason I push so hard for entrepreneurship is because all these other enterprises have really high barriers to entry. You want to invest with Edward Jones. That's a shop where if you want someone to manage your money, you got to walk in the door with at least 50K that you can leave there at least, if you want to invest with a lot of these real brokers that get high returns, you're talking about walking in the door with six figures. Unfortunately, the story of Black people in America doesn't really leave us well moneyed. So access to these kind of investment houses limited. Then you go down the street and you're looking at real estate, which is like the magic bullet for everyone's financial disparities. But in order to invest in real estate, it takes a considerable amount of money. If you're going conventional, you're looking at 20%. If you're looking at like a first time home buying situation, best of luck to you, but you're saddling yourself with massive amounts of debt just to get into that house if you finance it. And then you come to a business where, the average business starts with $3,000, and you're looking at anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000 realistically to get virtually any kind of little small business going in some capacity, assuming that you're not building something like a Tesla. You can you can figure out something to generate additional revenue for yourself based on typically skills and abilities you already have. So like don't leave out business as an investment or asset class in your portfolio. Like all these other things, super expensive, hard to invest in. Bet on yourself. You'll probably get further.
Thanks for that. And thanks for answering my loaded question. You did a really, really great job. And don't put me on the spot on live. We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you, everyone. I did post the link in the chat box on not Instagram, on Facebook and YouTube if you want to join in and ask us a live question on video if you feel comfortable. Langston, you and I were chatting the other day, and you were asking me what's my end game, and I was like, "Well, when I retire, I want to have, at least $1 million." You're like, "Why do you want $1 million, Shawnta? And what are you going to do with $1 million, Shawnta?" Okay, let's walk through this. And how are you going to get $1 million, Shawnta? And I'm like, well, I want to invest in this, real estate portfolio and different things. And you're like, okay, you're going to probably get a 4% return. How much is it going to cost you to buy these apartment buildings, Shawnta? Okay, Shawnta, if you take $20,000 and invest in yourself with your staff and with a marketing campaign and advertising, Shawnta, what would probably be your return on investments? And then I was like, you know what? That makes sense. So I appreciate the value that you bring. So when is a good time, in your opinion, to start a business?
Like right now. I look at starting a business the same way I think about like investing for retirement. The money is going to be there if you invest it in. You might want to retire early, you might retire never, but having that put to the side available to you, you've made it an asset that you can take advantage of. There's no bad time for having assets. Like right now, imagine if you were negatively impacted by the shutdown, social distancing negatively impacted your business. You can't get money, but you had a side hustle that was an online business that has now allowed you to maintain and stabilize. Whereas if you didn't have it, you'd be hosed. It is no bad time to be thinking about ways to monetize your ideas. And I have this kind of saying that I'm trying to coin, and it's basically, we were all put on this earth with something to offer. The question is, are you going to be able to monetize your blessings, right? Are you going to be able to turn the gifts that you were blessed with into the kind of wealth that, stabilizes and gives opportunities to your family? is where are we with that? So if you sit down and you're like, look, okay, this makes sense. I know, like, I'm not going to be able to have this hyper jump in my career, which gets me to my dreams, whether that's traveling more, or living in a different neighborhood, or being able to give ends to my family and friends, whatever that is, you know, you're not going to get there on the trajectory you're on. What if you could double your income? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's say you're making 100,000 and the cost of living for you, you got like a Lexus, you got a nice two-bedroom apartment downtown, and you like to eat out a lot, you know, you like to go on trips, whatever. Most of that money is already spent. And you're probably sneaking into your retirement account $10,000 a year. Let's say this is your life. Your savings aren't particularly robust, whatever. You're not going to get to where you need to go unless you just completely blow your life apart, which no one wants to do. So what if you took $5,000 this upcoming year and invested it in building a business? And it could be a business that you're passionate about. Like, let's say you're super into traveling. You could create a travel blog, and this is just an example. This is an example. Don't get too deep. But what makes your travel blog special is the next question. Everybody's like, oh, well, who doesn't have a blog these days? Who doesn't have a podcast these days? This is the fun part, because you already have the internal GPS to find what I like to call your people. So what groups are you a part of that are really unique and special? Are you part of a fraternity? Are you a member of a specific club? Do you have a weird hobby that no one else has? Have you been through some things? Lived experience, the Shawnta Jackson. Have you been through some things that would be valuable to people who haven't been through them yet or are going through them? Like, what? How valuable is your experience? Like, you got something to give the world. Capture that, right? Figure out what groups you belong to that are really unique to you, and the more unique and the stronger those bonds are, the easier it is going to be to market your product, and then you're off to the races. I mean, and I know I'm kind of oversimplifying because, like, I don't want to over talk this, but there is a very beautiful formula that you can use to monetize you, and it all involves getting to know yourself and the connections that you have with other people, because that's when you can solve problems that people actually care about being solved. You know, like, I came up with a solution for people on the plantation. I'm working corporate. I'm really not feeling the vibe. This is pre Black Lives Matter. This is before people were really talking about the systemic racial issues that Black people experience in the workplace. And I'm like, hey, man, I know I'm not the only person going through this, because I spend a lot of time at water coolers at a lot of different offices and have a very similar dialogue about what it feels like to be one of the few or the only Black guy in the office, and all the obstacles that come along with being on the outside of the office culture by virtue of ethnicity. I had my target demographic. I had a group of people that I could identify with, that could feel me, and I could feel their pain in a very unique way. Who can you identify with? You know, and the people you can identify with, you can hit them harder than anyone else, because everybody else is marketing typically more generically than you. You find your people, the rest is history.
Okay, before we, I do want to talk about how to start a business and the costs. I know you said the average business is about 5,000 to start. Of course, it can be more. There's franchises that may be around that price or higher. It depends if you're offering a product or a service, if you're retail. You know, it all depends on the type of business that you have. But you can also start a business as low as $500. My initial investment for my business was about $500. And that was just getting my business license, not all at once either. You know, getting my business license, my business cards. I had a laptop already, and I serve as a consultant. So it was just more so time. But I want to try something different. I want to share my screen. I have some slides that I created in the past for a group, my colleague Shalita O'Neill and I, we facilitated a nonprofit and business entrepreneur series for Baltimore City Health Department. And I'm just going to pull some of the slides that we conducted together. For those of you who are interested in starting a nonprofit organization, visit my YouTube channel and look at the watch the interview that I did with Shalita O'Neill. Let's see if I can make this work. And I'm being spontaneous here, so everyone bear with me. Let's see. Of course, it's not working. Well, let's talk about some of the common barriers and mistakes that people make. I'm not able to share my screen, everyone. I apologize for that. But one of the things is I would like to say going in alone is one of the common mistakes. And this is, it's your business, it's your vision, it's your responsibility. It has to be something that you want to do. If you have a vision for it and if you see it, you can do it. And you may have to learn and kind of be like a one woman or a one man show at the beginning, but that doesn't necessarily mean just because someone is not actually helping you with the activities or the tasks of the business that you have to go in it, alone. One thing that I often do is I create a list of people that I know, like who could possibly help me with this and what is their value add. As far as being I'm thinking about a mentor, right? And then you can even possibly think of, who can be a consultant for me? I don't have the money for an employees, but who can I hire on an as needed basis? Or who could possibly be a business partner? Or if you, or even you can even maybe think about volunteers, but that's more so for nonprofit organizations. But think about like who you could partner with. A lot of times we underestimate the work involved and that we'll actually have to do. The Small Business Administration and other websites, but the Small Business Administration, they're a pretty good resource. They have a business plan template, and I actually don't create a business plan. I create what I call a business plan synopsis, and so it's a shorter version. I'm not seeking funding from a bank, so I don't have to do the full out business plan where I'm investing and doing extensive marketing research or hiring a business consultant to help me put a business plan together or spending that extra time. So in my business plan synopsis, I have what my mission, my vision for my company, what my services and or products are, and even what's my value add, my marketing strategy. For me, my value add for my consulting agency, Cause Engagement Associates, and 2020 is a unique year. I've actually been really, really busy, so I have to do a better job of delegating tasks. So I didn't do a good job in 2020, but I have quarterly newsletters, and that's a way for me to market and provide value and information, and then also share the product, the services, and the clients and everything that I'm doing. So a quarterly newsletter, and then I also offer quarterly free webinars. And so that's my value add, and that's my way of marketing because I don't have the budget to do that. But that strategy that I just explained is in my business plan synopsis. And then also in my business plan synopsis, and this is only like about 3 or 4 pages, I have what my price points are, and if I bring in another consultant, what I'm willing to pay them and what I would charge a client if I have a team of individuals versus charging just for my individual self. And then I just have a table with 2 columns of expenses, the name of the expense, and then the actual cost, the estimated budget for that, and just my goals for the year. And then what I do is, so I do this business plan synopsis every year. Like I said, it's just a few pages. It's just so that it's my strategy, my plan, so that I can know what it is that I'm working towards. And then the content that I have there is I can easily copy and paste it and put it on the website. If I have a presentation, I already kind of know my price points, my mission, my vision, everything is written down. But then what I do is quarterly, for this is what I want by the end of the year. This is how many clients I want. This is the big contract that I'm trying to get. These are the services that I want to eliminate or add on. And then I break those down into quarterly goals, and I actually type them out, even if it's just 3 or 4 things that, like, what are the actions? So what are the objectives? What are the SMART objectives? It has to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. And I actually tape that and I put it on my wall, what it is that I want to accomplish within the next 3 months. And that helps me to hold myself accountable. Another common mistake is trying to cut corners or to save money, and being unaware of your baggage and your own personal needs and your own personal or your professional development needs. Langston said this last week on his podcast. There's YouTube University. There's Google. There's even classes depending on your industry. Every state agency, every federal agency, for the most part, they have free online courses. So let's say you're into health, or you're looking into emergency preparedness. FEMA, they have online courses for emergency preparedness, and this is professional development opportunities where you learn this information, you learn enough, and this can be a part of your service or your strategy for your business. Even Harvard, right? Langston, Harvard, they have free courses. And then finally, a common mistake and barrier would be lack of self-care practices. Langston, I asked you about your morning routine. And if you don't mind, could you let everyone know what your morning routine is? And or, I'm trying not to make it a loaded question, and or just what are your self-care practices for yourself?
So my morning routine usually starts with giving my day some order. And the best way for me to do that is to kind of like write my thoughts down, because when I wake up, it's very disorienting. You're going from a state of unconsciousness to a very different state. And sometimes it's important to get your bearings. So I like to recount yesterday's events. What did I accomplish that I set out to accomplish? What do I want to accomplish today? I have a little note about my health on a daily basis, like how am I physically? Because at the end of the day, I'm the engine that makes this thing run in the waking world. And if I don't take care of myself, everything kind of falls apart. And I also have like room for, I had a really good idea. One of my clients, should maybe consider doing this. It's a great catch-all in the morning for all those great ideas that were cooking overnight. So when I take these ideas out of the oven, I put them in my journal, I can move on, because in my journal, I've already set my mission criticals for the day. Like, today I have to accomplish this. I can't go to sleep tonight if this isn't done. Make sure that this meeting happens. Like, I have certain things that are mission critical, and then everything else, it falls into place because I've accomplished enough at the onset, and that can only happen if I journal. So journaling for me is huge, and I try to at least get down 25 things I'm grateful for in the morning. It just gets you in that gratitude state of mind. So my journaling process is probably longer than most people's journaling process. Like, I write novels in the morning. I'm just going in. But it helps me maintain some sense of balance because I have so much stuff going on at any given time. Whether it's my stuff or one of my clients' things, I'm just always juggling. So it's where I get both feet on the ground. That's a huge part of my morning ritual. And then like the self-care, like I have a beard, so like if you have a beard, like you'll get this, especially if you're bald. This is everything. This is all you got left. Okay, I'm bald, and this is the final frontier for me. So I've gotten into like the male grooming and the beard oil thing. And I even started creating my own beard oil, and got a deal with some other Black-owned businesses to help me manufacture this stuff. So that's like a hobby. That's my self-care thing. And
You
you know, I
turned
like,
it into a business.
yeah, like if I'm gonna spend the money here, like I want to like get some back, you know. But that's just how I'm wired. Like my family's like that. And sometimes, like for self-care, I torture myself by calling my parents up and argue with them about what direction the world is spinning. So, you know, I got some self-care options.
Thanks. And I want to check in on the comment box. Hi, Max and Shantu. They are in Maryland. And we have Pieces of She podcast, Pieces of SHE podcast. Hey there. Where are you located? Pieces of She. Yeah, and if you all have any questions, feel free to include them in the chat box, or if you feel comfortable enough and if you want to come on video to ask the questions, feel free. You have two entrepreneurs here. We're self-employed and we're open to sharing advice and allowing you to pick our brains. So let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of the most common legal structures. So we have a sole proprietorship. So Pieces of She podcast is in Vegas. Thank you for joining in. So we have a sole proprietorship, which is essentially I am an individual and I'm choosing not to register my business with my state or the federal government. And I can use my social security number to do business, but I would recommend going onto the IRS website, irs.gov, and getting a tax ID number, aka EIN, or to get a tax ID number. So you have your sole proprietorship, and with the IRS, you are taxed as an individual. And then you have a partnership. So a partnership should be self-explanatory. It's when you're doing business with it's yourself and another person, or two or three, however many partners you have. And from my understanding, there's like a limited partnership, and then there's a limited liability partnership, where you can have like basically there's two common types of contracts, and one is where I'm like the general partner and I have the liabilities, such as like if I were a sole proprietor, I have the liability, and the other partners don't, but I make the majority of the decisions as well for the business, and I probably will have more income generated from the business activities. And then from my understanding, the limited liability partnership is where we can register to where we all have limited liability as partners. And then there's an LLC, a limited liability company, which is just that. So with an LLC, the owners are referred to as members. And the members usually have limited liability, unlike a sole proprietor. As a sole proprietor, your personal assets, if someone wanted to file suit, so let's say you are a plumber and you're operating as a sole proprietor, and your client is unhappy, they're taking you to court, and your personal assets are in jeopardy. Versus with a limited liability, in general, the general purpose is that your personal assets are separate, and if anyone goes after anything, it's really the business assets that are in jeopardy. But of course, you have to be mindful of mixing your funds, like your personal savings, your personal checking, with your personal business checking, because once you start transferring or using those together, then you've opened up the book for access to your personal assets, from my understanding. And then of course, there's a corporation. There's a S corporation and there's a C corporation. And this is when and how I have my business as of now, I am an LLC and I elected to be taxed as an S corporation. And it's more paperwork, with doing that, and I actually don't care for it. So I just sent in my letter to the IRS to revoke my status as an S corp. With the C corp, you have the strongest protection and personal liability, and with the corporation, you can have stocks, so you can sell shares, and even your employees, you can even offer stocks to your employees. It's a higher cost to form a C corp, and it's extensive record keeping and reporting. And also an S corp has extensive record keeping and reporting. And with the C corp, from my understanding, the taxation, you can be taxed twice. But with the S corp, you're avoiding the double taxation, and the profits and some losses for the S corp can go to the owner's personal income without the corporate tax. Do you have a preference when you are advising people when leaving the plantation, or like what, or does it depend on the type of business that they're looking to do?
Yeah, for me, a lot of it has to do with the business that you're in. You know, if you're doing something that has the potential for tremendous blowback, like let's say you're selling food, or you're providing a service where somebody's injury could lead to medical bills, you want to protect your personal assets. And that's where that limited liability comes in. So that's why, you know, in a corporation, whether it's an LLC, C Corp, or S Corp, that's where you're getting that protection for what you're doing. But before I even get into like, you know, corporate structure, you know, I want to make sure that the business we're talking about is even profitable. You know, I see a lot of people, I got a ton of friends because, you know, the first thing they want to do is incorporate. They've got like a ton of corporations because they started businesses that weren't profitable, or they didn't think all the way through. And now they've spent, you know, in Massachusetts, $500 to file to incorporate a business that they're not even in anymore. And then they don't maintain them, and it becomes a mess. So what I would say, like anybody like fresh off or exploring getting off the plantation, test the water as a sole proprietor. It costs you nothing, and you can get your EIN for like $5. You know, so you have, you know, at least something you can register, you know, to kind of separate your income and business income. And
well, actually, EIN is free. You can go onto the IRS website.
I think I'm thinking about a DBA. You can get your DBA out here really cheap.
Yeah, so everyone that so Langston just had a DBA. So with the so a DBA is a trade name, or a DBA stands for doing business as. So as a sole proprietor, let's say I'm in the state of Nevada. Nevada doesn't have state taxes, so and so I'm actually thinking about transferring my business from Maryland to Nevada, by the way. Like, do I want to move my business to a different state? But with the sole proprietor, to get an EIN number, there is no fee. You go to the irs.gov and you just answer a series of questions to make sure that you're eligible and that you're in the right category and that you should be registering as a sole proprietor. And you can do this online, and then automatically you get your EIN number, and then they'll send you the confirmation letter in the mail. But let's say you don't want to do business as Shawnta Jackson, and you want to have a trade name. So you're Shawnta Jackson doing business as Jackson Consulting. And so that's what Langston means when he says the DBA. And in the state, I don't know what the price in Nevada, but I know in Maryland, it's about $25 to do that.
Yeah. It's probably the most inexpensive part of the process is getting your DBA. But either way, you get that and you get off to the races. You engage interest, because like I thought about the Nevada thing because it's so cheap to incorporate in Nevada, but the foreign entity fee in Massachusetts, and might be in Maryland too, is higher than the incorporation fee. So like that's the only reason I ain't go there. I like check if it's cheaper, definitely run the numbers and roll with it, because it's so cheap to incorporate in some states, but it's a ton out here. So before you incorporate, make sure that $500 might not be better spent doing market research, or having someone help you walk through beginning to end before you incorporate. Because if you're not starting with the end in mind and you incorporate, you might have wanted to be a nonprofit. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you should have been a nonprofit so that you could accept donations, because maybe you have a cause-driven business. And now the donations that you take or the contributions you take can't be tax deducted because you incorporated the wrong way. So end in mind, walk all the way through the process, and then you can get with a startup attorney who would pair you with the right business to incorporate as based on your needs, because they know all the ins and outs. Take the guesswork out of it. And startup attorneys are there for startups, so a lot of them are pretty like lenient. It's not like sit down with an attorney who's like $1,000 an hour and they want a $5,000 retainer before you sit down. Startup attorneys know they're working with people who don't have a lot of money, so they'll work with you. So if you're talking to them and you're like, hey, listen, I don't have a ton of money, I'm a startup, they already know. And then you start hitting them with, so I'm thinking about incorporating this or that and this and that, and they'll get some money for helping you incorporate, assuming that you appreciate all the free advice you're getting. You keep your business with them, they'll help you incorporate, they'll get some money, and you'll get a ton of advice to make sure you don't incorporate the wrong way or miss a step and spend a whole bunch of money trying to get what you should have got the first time.
Yeah, sometimes our friends and family members give us bad advice, and then remember that for me, I'm not a tax professional, a tax accountant. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give legal advice and I can't give tax advice. I can tell you what I understand and what I've learned and be resourceful, but be mindful of that as well. And also universities, they're schools of business. They have centers where they are supporting entrepreneurship within their local economies, and they have programs and support. I actually, when I was working at the University of Maryland, at the Smith School of Business, they had this initiative, this program called Pitch Dingman. And I actually went in, and it was like a 10 to 15 minute pitch. And these are my business ideas. This is what I want to do. I want to start a consulting company. And they listen and they listen. And they, so I'm pitching it to them. And then, so they're basically validating me to see that, because they're going to offer some services. So they're validating me. So I do this business pitch. And then they, after the pitch, they ask me a few questions, give me very, very short, 15 minutes consultation. Maybe you should do this. Maybe you should think about this for your next step. And then I came back and I met with this is probably not the term, but like a coach or a consultant. But there are programs. You have your local small business administration. You have your local chamber of commerce. Even though they want you to, they do have membership options, but they should have some free resources as well. But everything, there's a resource for everything. So if you're even legal services, your local law school. So if you're looking for resources and services and you don't have the money to pay, just check with your local colleges and your universities to see what they have to offer and what resources and programming they have, because they're usually funded. And then also, again, there's the Small Business Administration, SBA.gov. They have a lot of templates and resources, and there's usually a local office that is there, that they are funded. This is through taxpayer dollars. They're funded to be able, you should be able to call them and ask questions, and they'll be able to help you. And Langston, I do agree with you that a sole proprietorship is a great choice for low risk business owners and people who are just kind of testing the waters. And then even that limited partnership is also a great way to kind of test the waters to see if you want to really go in, if you want to start a corporation or a limited liability company with these individuals. And so Trish in Las Vegas, my mind went blank. And so that's Trish, Pieces of She podcast, for everyone that's tuning in. I'm sorry, Trish, my mind went blank. And then we have Lynn, and Lynn is from Las Vegas, and she wants to say to you, Langston, thanks, or she's saying thanks for having a man talk about self-care. And, Yeah, I have a lot of conscious and aware and confident brothers on my show. We've talked about a lot of different topics that women assume are taboo, but if you engage and talk to a lot of men, we're all human beings here, right? And Raquel says she wants to start a web-based business wholesaling. Is that an LLC or a proprietorship?
It could be either one. You could definitely start your business as a sole prop doing wholesaling. And assuming you're doing something relatively benign, you don't mind risking, or the blowback of whatever you're doing is not something that you're concerned about. You can operate as a sole prop. The LLC will give you the protection. So, like, let's say you're wholesaling. For me, it would be beard oil, and somebody got a bad batch of beard oil and they had an adverse reaction. They wanted to sue you. They would only be able to go after the assets and resources that belong to the corporation if you have an LLC. So, as a rule of thumb, LLC if you can afford it, but it depends on your budget. If you're working with a $2,000 budget, you have to really make that hard decision as to whether or not you want to use almost half your budget to incorporate your business.
But see, she's in Nevada, so I know that she's in Nevada. And
yeah, she is in Nevada. So it'd be a lot cheaper.
She said it's 500, but it's not that. That's not the case there in Nevada. So she could save 2 paychecks and
be in there.
Yeah, she can go ahead.
And it also depends on your budget. If you're going into a business, you got $100,000 and you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of resources, yeah, get the LLC and protect everything. But if you're going into the business of just kind of testing the water, you haven't even gauged interest yet. You don't even know if the market is going to respond to this positively. So before you dump tons of your budget into something that you could test, because you can sell an idea, before you invent anything, before you invest in raw materials, you can take a pre-order, right? So, like, let's say, beard oil. No kidding. We should talk. We should get together. I'm actually working with another client who's doing it as well. So I'm pretty sure I got the formula on beard oil on lock. So I'd be happy to share some of those nuances with you. But, yeah, make sure that your market exists. Hey, what's up, man? So, yeah, if you don't have a market, you don't really need to be in business. You don't have a business to be in if you don't have a market. And then you got to ask yourself the question, is this problem even worth solving? And I know that sounds crazy, right? It's like, oh, do I not solve this problem? No, not all the time. Because if you're solving a problem for a demographic that can't afford it, you're just spending a lot of money to provide a service that nobody's going to buy. It's a great service, but it's not going to be here. Like, I mean, look at Brooks Brothers. They just declared bankruptcy. I never thought I'd see the day, where Brooks Brothers is restructuring, but their service is no longer needed. In a pandemic, nobody's going in there anymore. Restructure, survive. It's no longer worth having all these storefronts.
And that's a thing. Sometimes in our mind, we have this idea and we're in love with this idea of what we want, but we're not considering supply and demand. We're not considering what the market wants. If you have a business and let's say you bake cookies and you have 4 different types of cookies, but you're spending your money and your inventory and your time on baking all 4, but only 2 are selling, and you continuously do this, why would you do that, right? Sometimes you have to listen to the customer and you have to listen to what it is that people want. And then if you're thinking about starting a business but you really don't know what you want to start in, one of the things that I would recommend is, so let's go back to our self-care and our morning routines. One of the things that I've been doing continuously is I practice silence. And in practicing silence, I'm not taking in any information. I'm not going, so first thing in the morning, I'm not going on social media. I'm not listening to anything. I'm in my thoughts. And I, like you, I express gratitude, and I state positive affirmations for myself. And in those positive affirmations, I have the answers within. God is with me, always has been, always will be. And when I do journal, I'm opposite of you. I like to journal at night, but like for my vision, what is it that I want for myself, right? And then if I'm trying to figure something out, like what should my next business offering be, or what should my next business venture be? What is it that I'm good at? Or what is it that I really enjoy doing that I'm good at? Or if people call me, what do they always call me for? Or when people come to me, what are things that people come to me for?
That's a big one.
Right? Like if I'm at church and if I'm always the person that's the music person, or they always ask me to get the books together, or whatever it is, then that could be something that you turn into a business. Or even at work, it's like, wait a minute, I do the same function as this person. Y'all hired this consultant to do, and y'all pay these people how much? And wait a minute, I can get a contract with the state to do something like this, and I can make as much money, but I can get the state and I can get that other state and that other entity. And, so think about just even at your regular job, the things that you do for your job. If you're getting paid to do that, and whether, I don't care if you are an administrative assistant, an executive assistant, you can start a virtual office. You can serve as a virtual assistant and have clients all over the country, maybe even all over the world. So think about the things that you're doing now and what you're good at and what people come to you for. But you have to build your self-confidence. And in building my self-confidence, I like to watch other people, like interviews on YouTube, Oprah, Lisa Nichols. I listen to Tony Robbins, and then and I want to transition to closing out this conversation. But one of the things that I did and I continuously do is I raise my standards. I do self-assessment. So this is journaling, everyone, ShawntaJackson.com, and purchase a copy of my journal. So self-assessment, what is it that I want out of life, and thinking honestly about my standards. So when I'm talking about standards, if you are surviving and if you are paying your bills, everything at minimum, and you don't have anything left over, but your bills are always paid every month, and let's say everything compiles up to $2,000. That's a standard. If that's your standard is, I just need enough money to be able to pay my bills and to survive. But if you think about, if you raise your standards, so for example, in December, I was doing some of my final invoicing for the year. And I was like, oh, heck no, I got to stop this. I can be making way more money than this. And I just literally said, I made a decision to where these are the type of contracts that I'm going after. And this is now on, I'm raising my rates. And I set a higher standard for myself. So that's what some of us have to do. We have to set higher standards for ourselves. Where we're at right now, everything, our circumstance, for the most part, everything is a choice. So it's just raise your standards and challenge yourself to make different choices. And as far as your emotional strength, emotionally strong people are okay with people being disappointed with them. Emotionally strong people are okay with people being angry and upset with them, because guess what? If they really care about you and if they really love you, they'll get over it. Emotionally strong people do not commit themselves and be in situations in their time where they really don't want to be there. Why are you going to that party? Why are you volunteering for this event? Why are you spending this time with these people when you know you have a goal for yourself, and you should be you're not willing to make those temporary sacrifices, right? So
that was very deep.
Yeah, you got to make those temporary sacrifices. You got to think about your choices, challenge yourself to try something different, and then just be that lifelong learner. I'll go to the comments, and then Langston, I'll allow you to close it out. And so Raquel asked the question originally. This was her original question. Should she start for wholesaling an LLC or sole proprietorship? We have someone chiming in. C. Funches, where are you calling in from? I'm sorry, watching from on YouTube. But this person says that they would suggest an LLC. The sole proprietor is all on her, and the rationale for that is for safety preference of her business.
Mm.
And then we have Danielle Brown. Danielle is in Baltimore, Maryland. And she says, absolutely. She's chiming in on Facebook. She says to know your value. Langston, any closing words of wisdom for our audience?
Yeah, I would say take the bold step of starting. And to start cost you nothing. And, like Shawnta said, what do people call you for? What do people ask you for? It might be something that you're really good at. You might have a gift or a talent or ability to bring people together or solve problems. That's great. Zero in on that and figure out a way to get paid doing it. The minute you start getting paid for what you do, you're in business. You've transitioned from hobby to business. And everything after that is just figuring out ways to catch more money in larger quantities. But if you've already illustrated that you can provide value, the next question is, how much is that value worth? How much can you charge for that value? How much is it going to cost you to provide that value? But you're not in business until you at least figure that little basic part out. So start and then make a grocery list. This is my advice. Go shopping like the sky is the limit and make a list of everything you would need to start your business, from staff to, like, if you need a new computer, if you need a bigger operating space, whatever, your office, put it down, write everything down, tally it up, and figure out how much of that you can do with the budget that you have now. You might be able to get off the ground with what you got, or maybe in a couple of weeks, you save up a few dollars here and there, you make up what's missing, and you're in the game. And then the last thing I would, say and really wrap this thing up is, um, for most people I know that are entrepreneurial at heart, if you gave them $20,000, they would come back with at least 30,000 because they've got the resources to kind of put into place whatever they want to do, whether it's a t-shirt business or you want to do catering or whatever you want to do or whatever you think you have a gift or a knack for. Maybe it's even being a consultant or a financial planner. I give you 20K, you use it wisely, you educate yourself, you inform yourself, you allocate, you follow your vision, you're going to come back with probably at least double what I gave you. There's no place else in the world you can make that investment, real estate or otherwise. Maybe in real estate if you're into flips, but you're taking on a lot of risk. But there's nowhere else you can invest 20 grand and expect to get that kind of return on minimal risk. I mean, it's an amazing thing. We don't look at business as like investing in an asset class, but just like every year you dump thousands of dollars into your 401k, knowing that retirement probably isn't going to pan out based on that alone, you could be spending a fraction of what you're throwing into your 401k. If you're throwing 10 into your 401k, throw 5 into starting your own business. And now you're diversified for real. And if the one business that you're investing in, that $5,000 in, goes major key alert, you've replaced your income and you don't even have to work there anymore. It might have been, just what you needed to get off the plantation, because chances are you're not going to just work your way off the plantation on the plantation. If anything, they're going to make it harder for you to leave the plantation. But that's just the gray beard rattling off.
And you all, you can do it. If I can do it, so can you. Again, I'm Shawnta Jackson, and my purpose in life is to help people to help themselves and others. Thank you, Langston, for joining me today. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at the Shawnta Jackson, and follow Langston on Instagram at Langston White, and be sure to follow his podcast as well. He has some really good information. Just as a recap, everyone, we talked about some of the common mistakes and barriers to starting a business, and know your why. We talked about the most common business structures: sole proprietorship, a partnership, limited liability, and corporation, C Corp, S Corp. Consult a tax professional. And again, as far as the resources, business classes, Harvard, a lot of various universities, even federal, I keep saying state, federal agencies, they have a lot of courses if you're interested in a certain field and you want to know more about it. Your local colleges and your universities, your resources are there. And then there's always good old Google. And just remember to add value. And again, marketing strategies include newsletters, webinars, even just this platform right now, right? Build your brand. And I hope you all learned a lot. And again, I hope that I'm providing value in different areas of your life. Have a great day. Thank you.